And we kickstart this newscast with some big news coming in as the United Nations Security Council has adopted the landmark terror finance resolution. The resolution 2462 was initiated by France. The UN Security Council unanimously approved the resolution naming terrorist financing a serious crime. It demanded that all countries set up a domestic legal framework to counter this practice. India has welcomed this recognition in resolution of essential role of Financial Action Task Force or the FATF. Syed Akbaruddin, India's permanent representative at UN, said that the utility of any council resolution will be in its implementation. And speaking at the UN Security Council, Akbaruddin said that the global community was impatient for action. He said, going forward, UN collectively needs to do more and to do it much more effectively. For its part, India will be a willing partner in this endeavor.
Specifically welcome the recognition in the resolution of the essential role of the Financial Action Task Force in setting global standards, especially in the context of preventing and combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and proliferation financing. Also, the unfortunate reality is that states who are apologists for terrorists will continue to provide alibis to justify their actions and inaction too, as was done by a serial offender earlier today.
And to bring more details on this news story, I'm joined in by our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, who joins us live from New Delhi. Let's quickly go across to Siddhant. Siddhant, this is, of course, a landmark resolution that has been passed, and the topic of terror funding is something that has been addressed earlier in part, especially since the 9/11 attacks took place in the United States. But isn't this the first comprehensive measure of its kind? You must elaborate more on this resolution.
Well, it's one of the first comprehensive measures when it comes to terror financing, making sure that there is no financing to terrorism, especially from countries like Pakistan. Even though India's permanent representative did not took name of Pakistan, it was very evident he was pointing out to that one country in the region that has been the source of financing of terrorism for many, many decades, the country which has been when the plenary happened in Paris. So the most important line, of course, remains that states who are apologists for terrorists will continue to provide justification for their action. This is clearly an indication that how Pakistan has been shying away from not taking concrete action. We know only yesterday Pakistan issued a release on Pulwama saying that more than 50 people who were detained after Pulwama terror attack had no linkages with Pulwama terror attack, and India gave that dossier in which various locations were given. More than 20 locations have no terror camps present. So clearly a direct attack in a sense, or slamming of Pakistan at the world body. And interestingly, the Indian representative also took a pot shot at the United Nations Security Council, saying that various sanction measures such as the 1267 or 1988 sanction regimes, which form the core of the sanction regime in the United Nations, are not being fully operated by countries, and there is no regular reporting because the implementation of these sanctions have to be uploaded on the websites, and clearly that has been mentioned by our ambassador at the United Nations.
Right, you rightly mentioned that Syed Akbaruddin mentioned, and he's actually emphasized on the implementation of this resolution. And speaking of the implementation of this resolution, now Pakistan, of course, as you rightly pointed out, will be back under the scanner. Can we actually expect any sort of curb on terror financing emanating from Pakistan? And apart from that terror financing, that also does bring in the blacklisting of Masood Azhar.
Well, Pakistan, when it comes to promoting terrorism, it has a well-known track record, which Pakistan also cannot deny. When it comes to various sanctions, whether it's the 1267, we know that even though Hafiz Saeed, who's the mastermind of 2611, is a United Nations designated terrorist, he continues to roam freely in various cities of Pakistan, whether it's Lahore, whether it's Peshawar. So Pakistan clearly is not implementing anything what the United Nations has been saying. But what is interesting to note is that FATF has grey-listed the country, and that, of course, makes very difficult for foreign investors to invest in a country whose economy is already facing a lot of problem. We know that Imran Khan has been going around with a begging bowl to China, to UAE, to Saudi Arabia to make sure he gets the fund, but he is not exactly getting the fund because nobody will be willing to invest in a country where the money can be diverted to financing of terrorism. And we already know that after the Indian counter strikes and of course Pakistan's misadventure in India by attacking the military installation on 27th of February, they have already closed their airspace. So already it's very difficult to go to Pakistan. They're financing terrorism. So it's going to majorly, directly impact the economy of a country which is facing a lot of problems when it comes to economic issues, and of course is a kind of a case, a basket case when it comes to global economies.
Right, Siddhant, there's one last aspect that I would like you to touch upon. As per the FATF, less than 1/5 of the world's countries have laws labeling terror financing as a crime. And this has been established by the FATF. Can we expect terrorists and terrorism to finally stop benefiting from the ransom money?
Well, as long as Islamabad continues with its policy of aiding and abetting terrorism, there will be no stopping of the issue of terrorism in the region, and it's up to Pakistan to do major action. If it doesn't take any action, the entire region is going to suffer. Of course, pressure is mounting on Pakistan, especially after the resolution introduced by the United States, backed by France and Britain yesterday only, which calls for listing of Masood Azhar, and we saw immediate reaction by Islamabad and Beijing, echoing each other, saying that this is kind of weakening the 1267 committee. But in fact, Islamabad and China themselves have weakened the 1267 committee. First, of course, not implementing the sanction regime. For example, I've already quoted Hafiz Saeed. And secondly, of course, China holding the listing of Masood Azhar as an international terrorist. So it's clearly Beijing and Islamabad responsible to make sure that terrorism is not spread in the region and, of course, the world.
Absolutely. Very rightly said. Beijing, of course, has an important role at the moment. And, of course, not to deny a legal framework and the implementation of this resolution is what is of utmost priority. Thank you so much, Siddhant Sibal, for bringing us all the latest.